Well, welcome back. I am Serena, and in this episode, I thought we would do a reading and discussion. Well, I would read and discuss with you. So, this article is written by Michael White, originally, first published online June the 6th, 2025. I will come to the publication details in just a moment. I hope you're okay. I hope you're well wherever you are listening and watching from. Are you keeping up with the news? If so, which why is my phone not charging? It's really bizarre. Um, which outlets are you relying on for your news? Whoopsies. Just checking. Is that yep, that's up. So let me know. Because I am a ground news affiliate, as you know, and that means that I use the ground news website, which does a wonderful job of aggregating a whole lot of news from across the world and will let you know where it's from and who owns it and where the story sits on the political spectrum, how high it is in factuality, and whether you can verify it, all these wonderful things, all these wonderful data points that we like. So check that out. I have a subscription description. I have a subscription discount available and you can find it in the description. Okay, so let's get to this article that I wanted to read with you and to you. So it starts with how the lobby has changed. So this is by Michael White, and let's start. So it's in the first person. I never dream about the lobby room perched high on a turreted tower on the Houses of Parliament, which is odd considering how many afternoons I once spent there for the Downing Street briefing, promptly at 4 o'clock. I do often dream about missed deadlines, the absence of red telephone boxes in which to file on wet high streets, and more recently of dodgy Wi-Fi connections on the laptop. It's just retrospective anxiety, which I rarely felt at the time. But when awake, I have also been anxious lately about the lobby as an institution. Just look what's happening under Donald Trump to the White House press corps, of which I was also once a member, entrenched hostility and a mutual collapse of trust that has seen AP, that's the Associated Press, I believe, excluded from the West Wing for insisting on calling the Gulf of Mexico by its proper name. Were relations, are they, ever as bad in SW1, Southwest 1? The answer seems to be yes and no. I joined the lobby in 1976 as number 4 in genial Ian Aitken's Guardian team. That's a Guardian newspaper. It was about the time that men, plus the Observer's Nora Beloff, were promoted from political correspondent to political editor. Fleet Street's now rampant title inflation was first invoked to get round Jim Callaghan's pay policy, £6 per week plus 1% unless you got promoted. I remained political staff, genuinely promoted in 1977, was clever Peter J to become Britain's US ambassador, a move that provoked outrage because he was Callaghan's son-in-law. I was present but not part of the informal chat with the number 10 spokesman, level-headed Tim McCaffrey, after the afternoon lobby. The dark lobby, as colleagues now call it, when Tom must have disparaged the outgoing ambassador to justify his removal. Ex-envoy was a fete snob, shouted the final editions. Those were the days of both ditto London evening papers. Coincidence? Impossible. So there was a who said what lobby row, but there are always lobby rows. Rereading its history since lobby reporters first emerged in the 1870s, initially looked down on as mere gossips by gallery men with seats to report the real proceedings, I see the rows remain much the same. Access, attribution, official lies versus the lobby's pursuit of stories that Number 10 regards as trivia, false, or merely an inconvenient distraction. Also, rows over rules and procedures, sometimes petty. Before my time, Ian Aitken was reprimanded for wearing a corduroy jacket in the lobby by a colleague, not by Number 10. Off the record, old boy, the complainant was the Daily Worker Morning Star man. The twice daily briefings at 11 a.m. in Number 10 to the right of the big black door at 4 p.m. at Lobby Room were supposed not to exist under government rule, an open secret that did not disguise the tannoid announcement that Red Mantle or Blue Mantle would meet shortly. In those days, the opposition leader met the lobby on Thursdays to discuss the coming week's commons business. At that time, Blue Mantle was Margaret Thatcher, though the practice was dropped when Ginger Mantle, Neil Kinnock, decided he wasn't getting much out of an increasingly partisan Fleet Street. As a cheerful backbencher, happy to oblige with a quote or a song in the cosy press bar, long defunct, Kinnock had been popular with the press, much less so in Maggie's post-Falklands heyday, as he struggled with Arthur Scargill's 1984 to 1985 strike. By then, of course, Bernard Ingham was the Number 10 spokesman. Thatcher had purged the cabinet's Tory wets in the early 80s, and Michael Foot was elected Labour leader. Ingham had been a Guardian Labour reporter before joining Whitehall, a press officer for Tony Benn and Barbara Castle, before being picked, a stranger to her, by Thatcher. He admired Castle, not Benn, as a brave reformer, but not as a skillful politician Thatcher would prove to be. The 74-day Falklands crisis saw the lobby, like the Commons, largely united. Not so monetarism and deindustrialization, union reform and closure of coal mines, apartheid, Europe, the British rebate, and growing Euroscepticism, etc. As a professional bluff Yorkshireman, Ingham defended Thatcher's policies and actions robustly, as he was paid to do, though I never assumed that he privately voted for them. Until the 80s, the lobby was an institution, stayed much as it had evolved in the economic crisis of the interwar years. The first collective Number 10 lobby briefing being during the general strike of 1926, repeated during the financial crash and fall of the second Labour government of 1929 to 31. George Stewart was then appointed as the original Ingham, with the lobby leading the innovation, according to Andrew Sparrow's excellent Obscure Scribblers. Daily non-attributable briefings were established, and the lobby had become the dominant media player. Under John Reith's legacy, the BBC's news was docile until Suez. Eden's press secretary William Clark resigned over the deception, and the arrival of upstart ITN made TV assert its new power. During the 1936 abdication and pre-war appeasement, the lobby and their editors had connived in suppression of the facts. Neville Chamberlain himself orchestrated his staff's news management. Wartime discipline held after 1945, when taciturn Clem Attlee was indifferent to the press and Churchill too grand to bother, as Anthony Eden was not. Deference hung on the 14-day rule, which banned topical debates on TV if Commons debate was pending, was rescinded only in 1958. As a new boy in 1976, I was still shown a copy of the starchy official lobby rules: do not run after a minister or MP. But change was coming. Beyond the fringe, Private Eye and the witty Saturday night show That Was the Week That Was on the BBC even had helped pull down the walls and raise forelocks. So did high jinks in high places, notably the Profumo affair. Ian Aitken, then of the mighty Daily Express, got Profumo's 1963 resignation scoop, not from the lobby but from his deputy, nephew of the next PM and future Times editor Charlie Douglas Home. The lobby rarely launched a feeding frenzy. The lobby could hardly resist joining in, not least because TV viewers and advertisers were starting to eat newspapers for lunch, a process the internet would finish with afternoon tea and dinner. Red top tabloids were getting friskier and more aggressive, sucking the staid broadsheets into their vortex. With conspicuous exceptions such as Boris Johnson's Partygate, the lobby rarely launched a feeding frenzy on Jeremy Thorpe's Love Life or Lord Jellicoe's Reggie Maudling's Little Pot of Money or Marcia Falkender's Peerage, the phony slag heap scandal, and the Daily Mail's forged British Leyland letter furore, but it didn't stand aside or protect the establishment, even on occasions when it should have done. When two Thatcher scandals rocked the government, the old reflexes ensured propriety prevailed. During the 1986 Westland helicopter row that triggered Michael Heseltine's premeditated resignation, the Attorney General rightly insisted on a leak inquiry that forced out Leon Britton, though Ingham put him up to authorising the leak when Thames TV investigated the SAS's shooting of 3 IRA bomb planners on Gibraltar in 1988. Thames, again rightly, defended its reporters in the face of Thatcher's and half of Fleet Street's attacks. Would TV bosses show such courage now? Thames' defiance cost it the franchise, and Norman Tebbit was already denouncing BBC veterans such as Kate Addy and John Simpson as traitors for reporting awkward facts. When I became political editor at The Guardian in 1989, I inherited a standoff between Bernard Ingham and a section of the lobby. In the late Harold Wilson era, the Mirror veteran Joe Haynes, Number 10's chippy press chief, had briefly cancelled lobby meetings. Now, 4 publications, The Independent, The Scotsman, The Economist, and the not to be left out Guardian, refused to attend the lobby until Ingham agreed to have his briefing attributed to number 10. None of this opaque stuff about sources. I can't remember what triggered the row, just frustration with Ingham perhaps, but it was inspired by Tony Bevins, a born disruptor. It struck me as a silly battle because it meant we had to ask kind colleagues to tell us what non-attributable Bernard Holt had told them. Sorry, I think I might need to grab my glasses because I think the light's so blue, and I like to wear these blue light glasses, and somehow less eye strain, even though they need a proper wipe. It'll just have to do for now. I may have to plug in at some point. Actually, that is less harsh. So, where was I? I think we were talking about sensible John Major let even more sensible Gus O'Donnell, a future cabinet secretary, patch up a compromise by which we could attribute his thoughts to number 10 or Downing Street. But no names, please. A slight gain, but since Polcore were notorious for their use of non attributable sources and still are, it wasn't full transparency. Truth Social, sorry, Truth Social, that's probably what caused it. Twitter, TikTok, the technological tail started to wag the political dog and media in the 80s. Live radio broadcasting of the Commons had let in some daylight through TV for far more of a change was resisted until 1989. Breakfast telly offered ministers a gentler platform than Radio 4's today, and 24/7 news came with Sky and the BBC in 1989. I remember resisting a pager. Oh, I love pagers. From which there would be no hiding place from the news desks. News desk, futile. How primitive our early mobile phones look now. But email, WhatsApp, and smartphones have both liberated and enslaved us on the scrolling treadmill. We didn't grasp that they would also empower the demons of mostly right wing demagogues and deregulated Fox News. Major's press spokesman O'Donnell and the diplomat Christopher Meyer were straight bat civil servants like Dave Pearce, spokesman to Rishi Sunak, and now retained by Keir Starmer. Major's problem was less the press, though often unkind, and more his own EU divided party. Alistair Campbell, a new hybrid of Politico with civil service powers, had to deal with a deeply hostile Tory press after the briefest of Blair honeymoons. He put the twice daily briefings on the record and later instituted a monthly televised press conference in Number 10. Gordon Brown couldn't manage what Blair so easily did, and the practice faded, though David Cameron tried a variation, and Boris Johnson spent 2.6 million on a press room where Allegra Stratton was destined to become a local version of the White House spokesman. Much postponed, the change never happened after one of Stratton's rehearsals surfaced with a damning Partygate joke. How best for a leader to communicate directly with voters, avoiding the distorting prism of the mass media? That was Number 10's challenge since Gladstone toured Midlothian by train. Blair, Campbell, and Peter Mandelson were much more proactive. You were either for Blair or against, or you were wankers, by which Campbell meant the liberal but wary Financial Times, BBC, Channel 4, and me. By far the best lobby politician, Phil Webster of the Times, even kept grumpy Gordon Brown sweet and was duly rewarded with stories by both new Labour camps. I was content to keep my distance as a suspect wanker, though a Blairish one. They could all be pretty brutal, though their favourite target was surprise the BBC as usual. Public trust was made worse by social media. In retirement, Ingham called it Campbell's terrorist regime in aggressively engaging with individual reporters. Campbell, who, as political editor of the Mirror, had studied the pugnacious Ingham, would say he copied Bernard, but despite New Labour's courtship of the Tory press, initially quite successful, Campbell was dealing with a much more pervasive 24/7 media. No longer analogue, drone warfare rather than traditional artillery. In a more crudely partisan era, his combative personality and deep controversies over Iraq and Europe fueled the fire. Public trust in both politics and the media was a casualty. Social media would soon make it worse. The playing field following the Blair years and after my time seems to have been calmer, with three exceptions. Andy Coulston, David Cameron's tabloid pressman, fell foul of the news of the world hacking affair. Gordon Brown's dark alter egos, Charlie Whelan and later Damien McBride, blew up spectacularly after decidedly unsporting briefings against Brown's enemies, including Blairites. Damien's memoirs, Power Trip, are not for the squeamish and make Campbell sound like a vicar. Thank you, Lawless, in the comments. Compliments of the evening, a challenging read indeed. The glasses won't work. And of course, there was Boris, a disreputable journalist who despised journalists with the same instrumental cynicism he had deployed in the trade. Johnson boycotted hostile lobby papers on trips and banned his ministers from enemy programs such as Newsnight and the Today programme. Unlike the deep divisions exacerbated by the Brexit battle that he deployed to win his 2019 election victory, the COVID lockdown was not a crisis of choice. Johnson had already unilaterally relocated the 4 p.m. briefing from the turreted lobby room to number 10, an inconvenience to the lobby and a means of control. Journalists had to pass through the security gates and thus could be excluded. At least one such effort was made, but lobby heavies, including Laura Kuenssberg and Robert Peston, put their foot down. Lee Kane, the renegade Mirror man turned Johnson advisor, who was a director of comms from 2019 to 2020, is said to have wanted to cancel the 4 o'clock. In cahoots with Dominic Cummings, another enemy of the lobby, gossip had it that he tried to have uppity hacks fired. This is really revealing. The lockdown crisis disrupted their campaign, forcing Number 10 to declare a truce. Instead, it conscripted the media in disseminating the harsh new rules. Restricted gatherings required lobby meetings by conference call later on Teams and pooled questions. Normally, competitive colleagues pulled together, and most agreed that the Daily Mail's Jason Groves asking pooled questions as lobby chairman and James Slack, his predecessor as Mail political editor, but by then the Prime Minister's spokesman, delivered fair, exemplary service. Then came first Cummings' COVID rules breaking trip to Barnard Castle, a Mirror Guardian scoop. Then first hints of Partygate, courtesy of the Mirror's Pippa Crerar. The rule makers had broken the rules while others died obeying them. Among Tory MPs, it helped seal the fate of the rule breaker in chief. The disruptor had been disrupted. Lobby solidarity prevailed, and the system had survived. All of which is a storm in a Commons teacup compared with the hurricanes unleashed by Donald Trump after tumultuous decade. Westminster has stumbled on 2 successive PMs who are inexperienced and happy to be uncharismatic, basically both dull and decent. The lobby has embraced tech-driven change, such as tweeting during briefings. It is enjoying a period of calm, awaiting the next storm. Well, I think we're now in the next storm. This was written in 2025. Michael White worked at The Guardian from 1971 to 2016, including as political editor and associate editor. He is books editor of the BJR and sits on the editorial board. So what did you think of that? What did you make of that piece? British Journalism Review, how the lobby has changed, talking about the trends of media consumption, reporting, talking about how the functioning of press access has changed, lobbying. Just I found that really insightful reading. I hope it came across well. Had a bit of accessibility issue there, but might do more of these actually. Uh, After a while, we are just reacting and responding to a news cycle. And I think a palate cleanser, or at least a zoom out, taking a step back to reflect on how things worked, how are things working. Otherwise, we're just in this reactive feedback loop. So I hope you enjoyed that. So I'm Serena. I've been in comms and media for more than 20 years. I started this channel just a couple of years ago. And at first, the focus was media literacy. And then I would use the news cycle to bring those principles of media literacy to life. And then before you knew it, I was talking about politics, UK, US, the media, entertainment, AI, and more. And whilst I won't do a reaction every day or a typical journalistic piece every week, what I will do is reflect on everything going on that I have access to, learning and knowing. And I like to consume a varied media diet and then bring highlights, ideas over here, and also bring you a palate cleanser, just something to switch things up a bit, maybe change your algorithmic feed, and just give you something slightly different to ponder on. But let me know once again where you are listening from. Thank you for Lawless in the comments and for your time and attention, because these are the most important things that you have, that we have, our time and attention. And subscribe. Feel free to jump in the description and find other links that provide more things that I offer. You can join the channel, find me on Patreon, many things. So it's wonderful to have you here, and I'll catch you in the next one. And if you don't catch a longer stream or video, then more than likely you will catch a short video, a short piece that I would usually upload every day. So have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, whatever time you're watching this, and I'll catch you in the next one.